I think we'll get started. Welcome to this fine, unusual Monday afternoon meeting of the City Parks and Recreation Board. We have a rather short agenda this afternoon, but one of the topics is quite long. So I've taken the liberty of swapping agenda point 2 and agenda point 3 around so that we do 3 first and 2 second, because 2 is the longer one. So we'll do the short one, get into the long one, and see how far we get before we get tired of listening. And then we'll move ourselves along. We've talked about it. Carl knows what I mean. So let's start out. Board takes public comment on all, my screen just blinked, I had to see what it said. On all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or a consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the board at this time. The board may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Do we have any public here? Anybody have anything to say this afternoon? Consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to check out the October 26th minutes from the meeting? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved?
Second.
Seconded? All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. So let's open into the regular agenda. Like I said, we're going to do number 3 first. Updates on ongoing items. The food truck public forum, the water lily collection operations, the youth sports complex designs, the Brentwood Park renovations, Rio Concho Park trail reconstruction, and recommending any related matters thereof. You're on, Carl.
These are all quick updates on different projects that we've been tasked with, as you know. First of all, at our previous meeting, we talked about food trucks and the food truck court, and there was interest in having a public forum on this, and so we have set that up for Tuesday, January 30, 5:30 in the City Council chambers here. The purpose of that meeting will be to hear public comment about food trucks, hear from food truck vendors, get an understanding from them what issues they're dealing with, and to see how the facility can facilitate their operation and the public's desire to have food trucks. So that will be coming up. Water lily collection operations agreement. At previous discussion with the board directed us to proceed with the negotiations with updating and renewing the agreement with Mr. Ken Landon for the operation of the water lily collection. We've proceeded with that. We drafted the agreement, sent that to his attorney, got revisions from him, met, revised, made revisions, and then sent that back to his attorney, and that's where it's at right now. So we're in the process of negotiations. I suspect we may not make much progress until after the holidays on that again. Youth sports practice complex design. We are about at 90% on the design of this project. This is out there off of 29th Street, the old girls fast pitch softball complex. And at present, I'm just calling it the youth sports practice complex, just to emphasize that it's a youth sports practice complex, and try to shy away from the name 29th Street complex because it's not even, in fact, on 29th Street. But with the budget we have, we started off with $1.75 million, taking out for design and other work that had to be done preliminary. We have $1.4 million to do the project, and this is the golf course road here. And so this is where the existing concession restroom building is now. So we're basically kind of keeping it all in the same area. This is an existing field. What we have will be a common area here, where it'll be just like a knoll, a grassy knoll. And then here will be a pavilion that'll have the batting cages underneath it, and then the restrooms at one end. We won't have the budget to do a concession building. And then we'll have 3 fields. One will be baseball field, and then 2 softball fields. And these won't be Texas Bank Sports Complex nice, but they'll be adequate for their use. for play for the Little League and for the practice fields. Now, we are in a bit of a budget bind because based on all of this development here, we won't quite have the funds to do all of it. So we may have to make some decisions here in the near future before we bid this out. If we need to add one of these fields as an alternate, the other option is not to do the restrooms, which I think is not a good decision because we'll have to have something, and I don't think we want to do portable restrooms out there. So we'll give you an update later, but the design is almost finished, and we're trying to work through the constraints we have with the budget before we bid it out. Any questions? Texas Bank Sports Complex, Quad 2 restrooms. As you know, we've the board in the past gave us direction to go ahead with this project. We initially wanted to keep the design of the restrooms at Quad 2 similar to the structure at Quad 1, which is a restroom and concession, the same size, same design, same everything. We bid that out once. It was over budget. We went back and tweaked the design to reduce the cost. We bid it back out again. We're able to come in lower at that bid, but still it was too high. And council directed us to basically just design a restroom, no concession, and keep it within budget. So we have, we spent $36,000 of our budget to redesign this. We have redesigned it. Should be going out for bid in the next few weeks. And it basically is just the restrooms. This here is the concrete in the quad. This shows the outline of the building. This shows the outline of the roof. So if it had the concession, it would probably be almost the size of this bigger square. Now that's just the restrooms. It's the size of the smaller square, and it doesn't have the round roof that the other structures have out there. As you can see here on this side, restrooms and some storage and mechanical. One good thing is it will have an overhang on the roof, so you can set tables out there for registration or selling concessions like drinks and prepackaged foods. So that will be going out for bid soon, and hopefully we'll stay within budget. Part of the biggest expense of this is getting the utilities to the structure because they're not close. So that's a big portion of this. Unless there's any questions, I'll keep moving. Brentwood Park renovations have begun. Started on some of the walkways. This walkway is done. I think this one is beginning, almost done. And I suspect we'll finish all these walkways before we start into this section. That's where the playground, the pavilion, and the parking area is, as well as other walkways. So that will continue. That project will continue well into 2018. And we'll give you updates probably every couple of months on this project, as well as the others. Rio Cultural Trail reconstruction. As part of the reconstruction of MLK Boulevard, which is very nice, by the way, it's probably the best street in town right now. I get a chance to go out there and drive it. But as part of that project and the funding for that project, we were able to include, the engineers were able to include some redevelopment of some trails and some bike lanes. So into the Texas Bank Sports Complex, all the way to where the Rio Concho crosses the river by the nursing home. That is all a new trail. I guess that's right about there. That is all a new 10-foot wide trail. I think they're virtually complete with that project. Pretty close. Should be done very soon. It's a very nice trail compared to what we had was the Chat, which was much more narrow and eroded quite frequently. The remainder of the line here is bike lanes on the street, as well as what we're concerned with is bike lanes through Santa Fe Park. The other lines are also bike lanes, but they're not through our parks. that will fall in the next few months. Any questions on those projects? That concludes that item.
Any question, further discussion on any of that part? Then let's move on to number 2. A report on the state of the parks, recreation facilities with discussions and recommendations of any related matters.
Okay, as I mentioned, this can be a very long item. I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible. The board had requested kind of a state of our facilities report. And in thinking about this, I also realized we probably need to do a state of our recreation programs and events as well as a follow-up. So this one really just focuses on our inventory of facilities, parks, recreation facilities, and sports facilities. So usually this is done as part of the master plan, and this is the last master plan, was the one in 2012. We try to update that every 5 years, which, by the way, it's due. And usually we make sure we update it when we're trying to compete for grants. That's one of the key reasons we do it. And we're not in position to be applying for any major grants at this point, so we haven't had the impetus to update it. But it is something we need to work on updating in the near future. And within the master plan, it gives us direction in terms of facilities, programs, and grants. And within it, it includes the inventory and assessment of all of our facilities. It includes input from the public. It looks at our level of service based on national standards, as well as planning guidelines, concepts, and fundings. And typically, this is done through a consultant. It's not usually done in-house. And part of the reason for that is to be objective about what you have. So for this, we're just focusing on the facility inventory and self-assessment. So we'll look at each facility very quickly. And if you need to stand up, take a break, get a drink, please do that. I don't want this to be boring. But we're going to look at each facility, where it's located, have a few images, look at the key assets there, look at the self-assessed condition, whether it's excellent, good, fair, or poor. Mention just any ongoing or upcoming improvements, and then staff's recommendations, whether we should maintain it as it is operationally, invest in it, enhance it, add some improvements, or redo it, or divest of it, whether through releasing ownership of it or by leasing the property. And then, if we have time, to talk about capital improvements. Now, the city has already initiated the process for capital improvements for next year, and we'll talk about that here at the end. But if we run out of time, we could talk about this at the next meeting. But we'll talk about the projects that are funded, the projects that are unfunded and in the future, and then revisit our list of priorities that we did, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. So the first facility combined is Santa Fe Crossing, Station 618 off South Chadbourne. Santa Fe Crossing, Station 618. Santa Fe Crossing was basically recreated out of an old freight depot in the late 1990s, and Station 618 was redone in early 2001. Just a few quick images. Key assets: kitchen, dining facility, fitness room, activity rooms, and that's where our offices are. Overall, the conditions are good. Station 618 is in better condition than Santa Fe Crossing. Santa Fe Crossing is due now for some aesthetic improvements, like new carpet, new wallpapering, just to spruce it up. That hasn't been done since it was recreated back in the 1990s. As you know, the upcoming project is the new parking lot near Station 618. Our recommendations is to maintain the facilities as they are. Southside Recreation Center, and if you have any questions or comments, just stop me along the way. Southside Recreation Center off Ben Ficklin Road next to Padrone Park. Key assets, gymnasium, court, boxing, and activity rooms. The conditions fair, approaching poor, no ongoing or upcoming improvements, and our recommendations is to invest at least to spruce them up and to add air conditioning, which is one of our CIP items. And that is the case for Carl Ray Johnson off Far Street, north of the Loop. Same situation. And then Northside Recreation Center off of Magdalen Street is south of 29th Street, which was recently leased to Pauline Baptist Church. As you can see, it's all the facilities are in need of new painting outside. This one's in the worst shape. But all three recreation centers are in fair condition, approaching poor condition. The Nature Center off of Knickerbocker Road on Mary E. Lee Park. The interior. Key assets, exhibits, programs, events. Again, here, the conditions are fair but approaching poor. It's in an old building, basically an old house that's been repurposed for the Nature Center and hasn't seen any major improvements except just maintenance improvements throughout the years. No upcoming improvements, and our recommendations are to relocate it, rebuild it a different location. We don't know where, but one possible location between 19th and 29th Streets and that property we own along the river, about 56 acres, which would be a really neat site. Maybe east of the sports complex, we owned about 20 acres east of the sports complex. Those are two ideas. Would be nice with some acreage so you could have a trail and have some interaction with the outdoors. A nature center. We've envisioned it, this goes back about 15 years, and at that time I think it would cost about $1.5 million, which I'm sure is doubled by now. But it's probably about 3 times as big as the current one, but had, rain collection, cistern, education room, and exhibits. It was wasn't really big, but it was nice. And if you're interested, I can show you that in a future meeting. I guess I should have included that here. But it would be nice to, it's one of our future projects. I think we listed it as a future project. If not, we'll make sure we do. It's a project we'd like to do, but we just don't have the reality of funding it at this time. Love municipal pool. See how crowded it can get. Too fast. It is the best municipal pool in town.
Yay.
And our only municipal pool in town. It's an excellent to good condition. I say good because it includes some property that isn't developed in the courts, as you know, that are just to the west of it. And we need to keep an eye on the portion that we saw a crack on the deck near the slides. That's been buttressed and the cracks filled in. We just need to keep an eye on that to make sure it doesn't move anymore. And that's why I mention it as good. But there's no, although in the future we would like to do some improvements on the courts, there's currently no other big improvements planned. 29th Street Sports Complex. A lot of open space along the river, easily accessible off Highway 87. Condition is poor, hence the reason to renovate it. It is property owned by the Corps of Engineers, but with a long-term lease. And we want to invest in that property, creating the youth sports practice complex. Ben Ficklin, A lot of folks don't know this is public property, but here's South 87. This is the South Concha River. It includes this property, but this property right here is currently leased under an agricultural lease. So really, it's just this field and property along the South Concha River and this strip here. It also is in poor condition. There's no plans for improvements. This would be a property that I would recommend also trying to divest. We have looked at trying to lease it to different operations, but part of the problem in doing that easily is that it's zoned residential. Early on, when the board was first formed here, there was a group that wanted to lease it for more of like a commercial baseball training facility, adding the batting cages and an indoor structure. But that was seen as a change in the zoning use, and it wasn't allowed. But it would be a property. I don't see any future in getting any funds to do anything different here. It would be a property that would be nice to lease out to somebody. Community tennis facility. This is
Give me
on
just a second. When you say divest, you mean selling it? Is that what you're talking about?
sell it or long-term lease, so we don't have to maintain it, and somebody else can put investments in it.
Would it be more attractive to somebody if we went ahead and tried to rezone it? Or
Yes.
do we wait?
I think we should wait. Depends on what the proposal is, because
Okay.
I don't know that we want to divest of it for others to build houses on. I don't know, or I don't know. I think we just need a proposal to see. We would like to try to do something here, but we don't necessarily have the vision or the funds to do it at this point. Maybe we want to talk about that separately in the future as a separate item.
Interesting to figure out if there's a way to let the word be known that we'd like to do something with this property, and if anybody's interested, that we'd be interested in talking about it and hearing what they'd like to do. I don't exactly know, other than the board and watching this on TV, I don't know exactly know how we could go about that, but there ought to be some way that we could let it be known that this particular property could be available for somebody's use somehow.
Yeah, make it attractive to them. Now, if you do divest something like this, does this go into a general budget that goes to city, or does it stay in your budget?
If you're talking about selling it, I think that would be a council decision.
Okay.
But this property, when I say divest, maybe that's not the best word. I'm not saying sell it.
Okay.
Because it is a park property, it would have to be out in a referendum. The public would have to vote whether they want to divest of it as a park property.
Okay.
So I'm more leaning toward a long-term lease. An example of when I first came here, the South Side the Southern Little League used to lease this property for their operations. So that would be an example of something I would be
Okay.
interested in if somebody wanted to use it for recreational purposes. And it's right next to the river, so it has potential. Is there another word other than divest that would be better used? Moving on, the community tennis facility. This is on school district property, but we used half-cent sales tax to renovate these 6 courts, add the restroom, the common area, and the 2 post-tension courts. It's in excellent condition. There's no planned improvements, and it's in the school district's hands. We do have a long-term agreement for the public to be able to use it outside of school district use. Lakeview Little League is also school district property. Lakeview High School is back down this way, and it's in fair condition. Northern Little League. It's our only sports complex that's completely bounded by residential areas. It's in a residential neighborhood, as you can see. It's not in an ideal location. Some of you may recall, we try to steer development of the 29th Street complex as the new Northern Little League complex, but they did not want to move, so they stayed where they are. It's in fair to poor condition, no planned improvements. Recommendations at this point to maintain. San Angelo Soccer Association is also on Corps of Engineers land. You can see O.C. Fisher here, and it's along Glennis Street, basically from this end to this end. A very large property, as the mowers know. Several fields for mostly youth, but also these 3 fields were created up here on the north side for adult use. It's in good to fair condition. No planned major improvements, but Parks does every year or two redo the turf on some of the fields, which I believe we intend to continue. Our recommendation is to maintain. Texas Bank Sports Complex off Bell Street. 15 fields, trails, playgrounds, parking. It's in excellent condition, above excellent. And as you know, ongoing improvements is the Quad 2 restrooms. And our recommendation is to continue to invest in this property. Western Little League. This is out by the airport. In fact, this is the airport terminal right here. This is Knickerbocker Road. They have 5 fields, not 4 fields, 5 fields. Good to fair condition. The league, this is one of the better, in my opinion, the better Little League organizations in terms of their programming and finances. And they are planning on doing some minor improvements this spring out there. Our recommendation is to maintain. Now we're switching over to the lake parks. Any questions on the sports complexes? So it's a mixed bag, ranging from poor to excellent for all the different facilities. The first one is Hot Water Slough Park. This is the park that was created, I'm not for sure, but I think we acquired it when the power plant went in. This was created for the public. It's called Hot Water Slough because that's where the hot water discharge came from the power plant. And so it used to be a good place to fish because of the warm waters. It's along the water near the lake. Fairly easy access, but it's in very poor condition. No planned improvements. In my opinion, we either need to reduce the size of it or completely divest of it. I've kind of been on the fence on that, but I'm leaning back towards that. Part of the reason I was on the fence on it because this area is getting developed for residences. So it would be nice to have some park property for these residences, for these residents and these residents, but I don't know that it needs to be that large of a park. It's not because it's not a place where a lot of people go anymore, and it's not heavily used, and it's in poor condition. It would be a property I would consider not keeping all of it. Knickerbocker Park, right off of Knickerbocker. The old power plant would be over here. Direct access to the lake. It's in fair condition. No upcoming improvements. Our recommendation to maintain it. Mary Lee Park. From Knickerbocker, when you cross the bridge, all of this property here, and also including this, it's where we had our prairie dogs, as you recall. several assets out there, the nature center, the beach, restrooms, boat ramps, a concessionaire, and it's in fair to poor condition. No upcoming improvements, and our recommendation is to invest in it. And it was the property, one of the key properties that was looked at the Gateway study for commercial development with hotel and retail, but that at present hasn't gotten anywhere. Middle Concho Park, which is a very long, narrow park off Red Bluff Road, which turns into Middle Concho Drive at the lake.
We have that all the way out to the spillway then?
It's what?
That's park property all the way out to the spillway, down Red Bluff?
Yes.
That
That's
looked
the
like what he
spillway
showed.
there.
Yeah, that's the old spillway right there. So all the way back down, that's all park property?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, then it just turns into Twin Buttes property, which is also public property. But in terms of where the gate is, the gate may actually be right here, but I think the gate is there. It goes from here to
Right
here.
close to the spillway. We fish up in there.
Most times the gate is open, so it just, it's a large park, but very narrow.
It was used a lot by hunters who'd come in.
There's
They just
lots,
camp over here and then just drive up the back way into Twin Buttes.
a lot of campers, several different public events. There's a disc golf course there, and they use it for their events. It's also packed during the boat races. Fair to poor condition. We do have an upcoming improvement for some improvements to the boat ramp and restrooms right here. Right once you pass the entrance gate. It's about a $500,000 project. Hopefully the design of that will proceed this year, which is why I think we should invest in it. The nature trail, which is associated with the nature center. This is North Concho Park. This is Spillway Road here. This is what's called as the P. It's all this property here. As you can see, the trail that's in there, it's fairly wooded. It's a 1 mile wooded trail. The condition is fair. No upcoming improvements, but we do from time to time work with scout groups to maintain the trail. Shady Point Circle Park. This is the KOA here, Knickerbocker Road. And here's the park. It's surrounded by residents. It's in poor condition. No upcoming improvements. It would be a property which ideally would be interested in, since it's used just by the residents, to maybe getting the homeowners, as a homeowners association, to lease it for their use. Much of the public doesn't even know it exists. So if we want to talk about that in a future meeting. South Concho Park on South Concho Drive at the lake. Very long, narrow park. It's in fair condition. And primarily because this is a popular boat ramp, I think we should invest to improve that boat ramp and improve the restrooms if we can. Spring Creek Park, the largest and most popular park at the lake. From here all the way to here. All this along that portion of the lake. Just to point out, Spring Creek Marina is there, and our Tule Princes, I think they operate from right there. And this is where we put the new boat ramp in about a year ago. in fair condition. Because it's a gated property, we can charge for gate entrance, and because it's a very popular park, I think we should continue to invest out there. Kong Creek Pavilion Park. I show this. The property is here, and the pavilion itself is managed by Civic Events, and the park itself is really only available if you've rented the pavilion. But I show this picture here because this property here is rented to leased to the Boy Scouts for their camp, but all this property here is public property, accessible any time of the day. There's a small parking area, and there's wonderful trails. Some of the best trails within the city limits are at this location. It's been overseen by the Water Utilities Department when they existed, and when we took over administrative oversight of the parks, I asked about this property. They said, do whatever you want with it. It's not land that we could sell. It floods at times, but it would be a really cool place to have a set of trails out there, which in my mind is a long-term goal. The pavilion park property itself is in fair condition. It does have a mechanism to do improvements out there based on some of the money that's used to rent the facility spills into an account to do improvements out there. So it has a mechanism for improvements, and we should continue to maintain it. That's all the lake properties. How are we doing? Any questions? I'll keep going. First of the park properties, Bart DeWitt Park is from Concho Avenue all the way to Randolph Street, where the skate park is, the Boy Scout headquarters, the Bosque, the Neffs area, part of the Farm and Ranch Museum, and where the Lady in Blue sculpture set will go next year. Bart DeWitt is the first developer of San Angelo. He laid out, he platted the first blocks in San Angelo. His wife, Angela de la Garza, is where we get our city name. Hence the reason to name the park for him. There's Brent.
Yep.
Lederhosen. It contains the Bosque. The park is in excellent condition. One of our most important parks we have. Upcoming improvements, as I mentioned, is the Lady in Blue sculptures, which they plan to have in place by May. Our recommendations are to continue to invest in this property. Bell Park, which is on the northeast side of town. I think this is Upton. Yes, Upton Street and Schroeder. It's a neighborhood park surrounded by homes. It is in poor condition. Don't currently have any hope for funding any renovations there. We have some possibility of doing some small improvements here and there to keep the property up. I would like to find some funds to invest in this property because it is the only park in that neighborhood and it currently exists. Brentwood Park, which you know because we're currently starting renovations. Brown Park in the Santa Rita area off of Johnson and Tuig. It's a small neighborhood park. Fair to poor condition, but we do have some funds allocated from half-cent sales tax to do some renovations there. And because it's the only neighborhood park in that area, I think we should invest in it. Civic League Park, as you know, overall good condition, and as you know, we're talking about creating the Botanic Gardens there. El Paseo de Santa Angela, which is basically all this property, all the way up the Celebration Bridge. Includes Old Town, the Tiered Plaza, the Ponds, Celebration Bridge, the Paseo. Was created part of that RUDAT project, which resulted also in the art museum. Good to fair condition. It does need, in our opinion, an overhaul to update the landscape. The grounds get heavily abused from the different events, which it's an event space, so that's what happens. But the turf shows the results of that. We don't have any upcoming improvements planned, but our recommendation is to invest in this property. Firefighters Memorial City Park, East Concho Avenue in Magdalen. Excellent condition, renovated in 2008. No upcoming improvements, unless we talk about the river crossing, which is a possibility. We're looking at the possibility of crossing the river, connecting the river trail somewhere along here to make it more easily to connect. That was originally part of the river project, and it wasn't funded just to stay within budget because the cost is about $400,000. But we're looking at the possibility of doing that again with some grant funds and some matching monies we have left in the river project. Our recommendation is to maintain this site. It is the city's oldest official park. Glenmore Park, East Avenue L, which I think it's Paint Rock Road at that point. Renovated 2005, in good condition, very popular park. It's a little difficult to get into because of the traffic on this road, and the road goes down. It's easy to get in, but it's hard to get out. No upcoming improvements, but we did recently put in small boat access here for kayaks and canoes. That was recent. A recommendation to maintain. Harmon Park, this is 14th Street. Park headquarters over here along the river. There's a popular disc golf course there. It's in fair condition. We did lose a number of trees there due to the drought. It'd be nice to try to replant some there. And since it's along the river, I think we should invest in there as well as the other properties along the river that we've done so well with downtown. Continue those improvements going east and west, which is this direction. Kirby Community Park off Edmond Boulevard. A very successful park there. We built it in 2006. It's very popular. No upcoming improvements, but we want to invest in it. The original plans had us build a pavilion of this size at this location and finish out the irrigation at this site, which we weren't able to do because of funds. We still would like to do that. But since that time, we've added these, what do we call them? Rose garden? It's a test rose garden bed. They don't get any additional water. They just survive off what they get, as well as a xeriscape landscape here. How are we doing? Keep going. Anybody need a water break? Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park, right next to a really nice street now. Renovated 2004 with community development block grant funds. It's in good condition. Recommend that we invest there. This is the location where the public has had a strong desire of the community to add restrooms at this park. We have portable restrooms now. We're thinking about either adding a restroom here or possibly here, but most likely here. It's in the CIP, but it's not currently funded. Middle Creek Park in the Southland area. It's the only public park in the Southland area. Renovated in 2011 with half-cent sales tax. It's in excellent condition. No upcoming improvements, and we should continue to maintain it as it is. Mountain View Park in the northwest side of town. The loop is up here. This is Mill Spa, Freeland. It's on the south side of the loop. It had the city's first accessible playground in the early 1990s. It's in fair to poor condition. No upcoming improvements, but because it's the only neighborhood park in the area, we should invest in it. Padron Park, recent renovation and expansion off Ben Ficklin, renovated to 2013, excellent to good condition, no upcoming improvements, we should maintain it as it is. Producers Park, off Bell Street and Ricks Drive, north side of the city. Construction 2011, in excellent condition. No upcoming improvements, maintain it as is. Red Arroyo Trail in the Greenbelt. Construction 2016, excellent condition. No upcoming major improvements, maintain as is. We just finished the dog park there. Rio Concho Park, which is from Rio Concho Drive there all the way down to Bell Street. So these narrow sections, this is where that new trail went in, down here. And it has 2 gardens. And across from the convention center. We have major problems of erosion at this park, as you can see. And we're going to be working early this year and trying to find some funds to at least stabilize portions of the bank. Thus, we should continue to invest in it. This is, in terms of river improvements, you know, we did improvements down to this location. It's our recommendation, if we do any major improvements to the river, it's this section here that gets done next. Santa Fe Park. It's all the way up the tip here by the Chevrolet dealership, and it goes all the way, includes a lot of this property where the YMCA is. It's all of this property. These properties, that property was acquired. It used to be houses. The city bought them so the Y could be built there. But Santa Fe includes all this, and all of this. Home to Kids Kingdom, which was done in 2003, 2004, in the renovated river. It's an excellent to fair. I say excellent. Excellent is the portion that we redid in 2013. Fair is the golf course itself. No upcoming major improvements, but we should continue to invest in this site. This is the location where we're talking about looking at the possibility of doing a larger park for the public, not just a golf course. Santa Rita and Sulphur Springs Park. Santa Rita by the elementary school and Sulphur Springs. Nice. Wooded park with water. Overall, it's in fair condition. We have no upcoming improvements there, but it is the location where the new sewer line is going in portions of the property. This section. We should continue to invest there. We do have some monies from house sales tax to renovate Santa Rita Park itself. South Concho Park in town. We have 2 South Concho parks.
Carl,
Yes.
so with the sewer project going in Santa Rita and Sulphur Springs, will that bring the current condition higher than fair, you know, up to good, because they're going to be using some of that?
No.
No?
The sewer line will be underground.
All right, I was hoping.
It would be nice if we could get some funds to redo a lot of the turf and the trees, add some
Right.
trees to those property. But that's currently not funded.
Well, I was hoping if they did any damage to it, that they would.
Well, they're supposed to bring it back as much as possible to the condition before they put the line in. We'll stay on top of that. They will have to take out a few trees, and they are to replace the trees that they take out. So it won't be any better. We'll make sure it stays as good as it was before the project. And this is the park that lift station is planned to go at that location. South Concho Park, Bell Street, down to Paint Rock Road. Well, actually, it comes here. Very long and narrow. We do have 2 South Concho parks, one at the lake and one in town. So we might need to think about renaming one of those so it's less confusing. There is a disc golf course there. We should invest in this property. This is the location where we're talking about continuing the river trail. There is a walkway on the bridge, continue the river trail all the way down through here and connect to Glenmore Park. Sunken Gardens Park by the Visitor Center. As you know, the sculpture garden. It's in fair condition, and as you know, we're looking at finding some funds to invest in that property and enhance it to make it easier to visit the sculpture garden. Unidad College Hills Park, College Hills and Vista del Arroyo, next to the Red Arroyo Trail. Overall fair condition, but the playground is in need of refurbishment, as you know, as well as the fall zone material. And we do have some funds to do that. We need to get the matching funds to do that. That's the project we intend to do in-house after the renovation of Brentwood Park. Getting towards the end, Webster Park on the northwest side of town. The loop is back this way. It's a small tot lot. It was renovated in 2003. Good to fair condition, maintained as is. Any questions on in-town parks?
Isn't the area where the Girl Scout building is, isn't it park property?
Yes.
That building's a registered state building, I think, isn't it?
I believe so. I don't know if I can back up. Well, it's back this way. There were some properties I didn't include specifically, but I just grouped them in this. We have several esplanades and parcels. It's just too many to list, actually.
I don't know that there's much down in there besides that building. It's not.
We call it Park Heights Park, but it's not really a park. It's just along the river. Part of the trail goes through there. When you're working east from the Visitor Center, there's a Boy Scout building. That's for Troop Number 1, which is leased to the First United Methodist Church. And then the next property is where the Girl Scout headquarters are, and it's a long-term lease. And then the next property after that belongs to the Health Foundation, and the trail continues along that. But we should keep those properties.
I just saw in a paper, was it Sunday's paper, where they announced, the foundation announced their grants? The Girl Scouts got a sizable amount of money.
Good.
To improve that building.
Good.
Which was the first we had heard about that. I was kind of surprised, but they're going to do something with it seems to me it was $40,000-$50,000. Goodly amount of money to work on that
Yeah,
building.
I understand it's supposed to be for flooring, because I had heard about
It
it
needs
several
it.
months
Wouldn't argue with that.
ago.
I think new windows and new roof and
Yep.
some other improvements. Other properties, we talked about the natural area between 19th and 29th Streets. It's undeveloped. The area east of Texas Bank Sports Complex. And there's a whole list of medians and esplanades and parcels. So that talks about each of our facilities, parks and facilities that we have, what they have, any plans for improving them, and our recommendation as to their condition and whether we should invest or maintain them or divest of them. We do it on time. The next discussion would be to talk about capital improvements.
We might want to break here and call this next month's meeting.
Right.
The follow-on process sides, call that next month's meeting. Add that to next month's
This
agenda.
part.
Yeah, this part.
Sure.
Because I would like, you had said something about the city asked for some SIP papers early.
Yes, this year, normally the city's started the CIP process for the next 5 years, like in mid to late January. This year, they started just a couple of weeks ago. So we had to submit our projects, resubmit our projects last Friday. So that's what I sent out this morning.
We can just, could we get, is it possible that we could see what was turned in at our next meeting?
Sure. I emailed it this morning, but
Yeah.
and that's what I handed
Give
out.
us a chance to take a look at it. We
Sure.
could talk about it. I did see the email, but I will admit I didn't get to open it and read it.
Sure, and that's the handout there too. There's no surprises, but sure, we can cover it next meeting. And it includes the projects we're looking at tackling within the next 5 years, 2018 to 2023. Talks about the future projects, the bigger projects that we'd like to do that are not funded, and then it ties in also with our list that we did of all the projects we'd like to do that aren't funded. We probably need to revisit those because we last assessed those about almost 2 years ago, and we've added new projects since then. If you wanted,
Yeah, so if everybody would, if you get a copy or grab Carl's email and these papers and go through the improvement projects that they want to submit, and if everybody take a look at them and give an idea, talk about it. We'll talk about it next meeting on what they are, what we think about the prioritization,
Okay.
that type of thing. We'll add that as an agenda and talk about it.
Can we also talk about some of the properties that you wanted to divest and how we can get that out to the public so that we could bring you more funds or income that way? Because if you're looking for a long-term lease
in
or something,
in some cases, we may not get much money from them, but at least we wouldn't have to maintain them.
yeah.
As long as we're there, let's call this consideration of future agenda items, because we just talked about two.
Yes.
Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to talk about for next month? January 25th, is that right?
25th, it's on here.
Yeah, January 25th.
Mr. Chairman, I've got something I'd like to bring up, and it has to do with carpet. And I've been around quite a few buildings and stuff, but would it be better to go with some of this synthetic wood that they're putting down, or something like that, or tile rather than carpet?
For instance, which location?
But you're talking about the senior citizen station and those kind of places where you're putting carpet in?
So put instead of putting carpet, put like the not tile, but
Yeah, there's wood. You get that synthetic looking.
synthetic wood.
Looks like wood, and that stuff endures forever.
Laminated flooring.
Yeah, I think it's probably cheaper than carpet sometimes if you get.
We can visit that. We did get a request to name the youth sports practice complex, so I need to present that to you at the next meeting.
That's the back half of 29th, right? The practice field area.
Yes,
Yeah.
the old 29th Street complex. And this isn't a part of any naming rights. It would be, we received a request to name the complex without money. So I need to present that to you.
One other thing I have is the sales tax money. Do we have a certain amount dedicated to this projects, or do you have to kind of come up with something? And
You talking about the half-cent sales tax?
the half-cent sales tax.
The half-cent sales tax. In most cases where the ballot language was pretty specific, it mentions specific projects. The money that we're working with in-house to renovate parks, we got a lump sum, and so we took that to council to give us direction. You know, we gave them a recommendation how we thought that should be allocated, and they gave us direction and approved that. They approved the allocations to different projects. The last time we took it was a year and a half ago.
Anything else?
So at the next meeting, I do want to announce, related to CIP, there's a public forum Thursday, January 18, from 6 to 8 here to talk about capital improvement projects and to hear the public's input. So at the next meeting, I've got CIP discussion of the properties that we talked about divesting and how to get the word out about those. The naming request. And then maybe not at the next meeting, but maybe in February, do a state of recreation programs. These are the programs that we have. This is our assessment of them. These are our plans for other programs and events. That would be Brent to do.
State of the city, isn't that in February?
Is it?
I think it's the state of city address is February or March, something, or somewhere in there. Early. Another thing we want to put on next month, on the 25th of January, is elections.
Yes, elections.
Should all be thinking about that, please. Unfortunately, my year's up. And seeing as how this is like, what, my third term? I don't think they'll let me have a fourth. Is that the way it works? Something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
And we still have, I know we've been getting, the city clerk's been getting applications, but we still have 2 vacancies. Mike Perry's and then Dawn, your position. So it'd be good to get more applications so we can get some nominations and some replacements.
If anybody else has any further agenda items for next month, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved? Seconded. Adios. Merry Christmas, everybody.